Have you ever felt a shiver down your spine when looking at your neighbor? That unsettling feeling that something isn't quite right. We like to think our neighbors are trustworthy. We believe our neighborhoods are safe. But what if the person next door is living a double life? What if a monster lurks beneath the surface, hiding in plain sight? Could you be living next to a cold-blooded killer? It's an unthinkable thought, a terrifying prospect that haunts our darkest nightmares. But sometimes, truth is stranger than fiction. Sometimes, the most ordinary-looking individuals harbor the most sinister secrets. We're about to embark on a journey into the heart of darkness that can reside right next door. We'll explore the chilling story of a seemingly normal neighbor who may be hiding a terrifying secret. Imagine a picturesque suburban street. Houses with manicured lawns, children playing in the sprinklers, neighbors exchanging friendly greetings. It's the picture of tranquility, a vision of idyllic American life. But something sinister lurks behind the facade of normalcy. He keeps to himself, mostly, this neighbor. Waves politely but doesn't linger to chat. Keeps his yard immaculate, his home well-maintained. He's quiet, unassuming, practically invisible. And that's how he likes it. As the sun begins to set each night, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, a transformation takes place. The friendly facade melts away, revealing a darkness that sends chills down the spines of those who dare to look too closely. At first, it's just a feeling, a prickling of unease. A series of odd occurrences, dismissed as coincidence or tricks of the imagination. A missed newspaper delivery one day. A strange smell emanating from the house the next. But then the whispers begin. Neighbors, sharing hushed conversations over backyard fences, noticing things they can't quite explain. A flickering light in the dead of night. The muffled sound of a struggle coming from within the seemingly empty house. Rumors spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and suspicion. Was that a scream they heard late last night? Why was the neighbor's car gone at 3 o'clock in the morning, only to reappear before dawn? Every unusual occurrence adds fuel to the growing fire of doubt. The once peaceful neighborhood is now gripped by an undercurrent of tension. Trust erodes, replaced by suspicion and a growing sense of dread. Something is amiss. Something deeply unsettling. The more observant residents start to connect the dots, piecing together a pattern of behavior that sends chills down their spines. The neighbors' seemingly harmless eccentricities now appear sinister. Their once unremarkable habits now potential red flags. The late-night trips, the strange smells, the unsettling silence emanating from behind the drawn curtains. It's as if the neighbor is daring them to look closer, to uncover the truth he so desperately wants to conceal. Fear gives way to a thirst for answers. The residents, once content in their ignorance, now find themselves consumed by the need to know. Is their quiet, unassuming neighbor truly capable of unspeakable acts? As the evidence mounts and suspicion grows, one question echoes through the once peaceful streets. Is this seemingly ordinary neighbor leading a double life? A double life steeped in darkness and fueled by evil? He was the epitome of an ordinary man. John Smith, they called him. An unremarkable name for an unremarkable man. He lived alone, a widower, they said. Kept to himself, mostly. Mowed his lawn every Saturday, rain or shine. A creature of habit, predictable, mundane. Neighbors exchanged polite smiles, a quick wave across the street. He never lingered, always had an errand to run, a chore to complete. Busy man, they'd say, keeps to himself. No one thought much of it. Not at first. He blended in seamlessly with the manicured lawns and neatly painted houses. A phantom in suburbia, present yet invisible. No one suspected. No one imagined. He was, after all, just John Smith. Or so they thought. The first sign they would later recall was the smell. A faint metallic tang in the air, clinging to the breeze. It came in waves, sporadic, unexplained. Some dismissed it as roadkill, others the stench of a nearby factory. Few paid it any real mind. Then there were the sounds. Muffled thuds in the dead of night, a scraping against the silence. A dog barking incessantly, its frantic yelps echoing through the darkness. Unease began to creep in, a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Whispers turned to hushed conversations. Neighbors exchanging furtive glances over fences. Had anyone seen John Smith lately? His car hadn't moved in days. His curtains remained drawn, a barrier against the outside world. The disappearance of Sarah Miller shattered the illusion of normalcy. A young woman, full of life, vanished without a trace. Her car, abandoned at the edge of town, offered no clues. Fear gripped the community, a cold dread settling over the once peaceful streets. The police investigated, of course. Dead ends, they called them. No leads, no suspects. The case grew cold, the file gathering dust on a detective's desk. But the whispers persisted. The unease lingered. They remembered the smell, the sounds, the strange behavior. They recalled John Smith's withdrawn nature, his meticulous habits, the unsettling glint in his eye. Could it be? Could their seemingly ordinary neighbor be responsible for such a heinous act? The more they dug, the more unsettling it became. John Smith, the quiet widower, was a ghost. No family, no friends, no past. His life, a carefully constructed facade, began to crumble under scrutiny. And the truth, slowly, horrifyingly, began to emerge. A pattern emerged. Young women, all resembling Sarah Miller, all disappearing without a trace. Each disappearance, eerily close to John Smith's previous residences. Coincidence? Or the chilling signature of a predator who moved like a phantom, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake? The evidence, though circumstantial, was damning. The whispers grew louder, the suspicion more pointed. The once ordinary neighbor, the man who blended in so seamlessly, was now the subject of terrified whispers and fearful glances. But doubt, like a stubborn weed, can take root even in the face of mounting evidence. Some clung to the familiar image of John Smith, the quiet neighbor, the harmless recluse. They rationalized, justified, refused to believe.
He was a widower, after all. Lonely, perhaps. Eccentric, certainly. But a monster, a killer? It seemed unfathomable.
And yet, the evidence whispered its own chilling truth. The community, once a tapestry of shared lives and casual encounters, became fractured. Suspicion poisoned every interaction. Fear cast a pall over every conversation. The truth, whatever it might be, remained elusive, shrouded in a suffocating fog of doubt and dread. The fear was palpable now, a living, breathing entity that seeped into every crack and crevice of their lives. Parents kept their children close, double-checking locks, peering out windows with a mix of vigilance and apprehension. Neighbors, once quick with a wave and a smile, now averted their gazes, retreating behind closed doors. The once familiar streets took on a sinister air, the shadows seeming to hold hidden dangers, the silence pregnant with unspoken fears. The idyllic facade of their community had been irrevocably shattered, replaced by a chilling reality. They were living in the shadow of a monster, hidden in plain sight. But was it a monster of their own making? A figment of their collective fear and suspicion? Or was John Smith, the quiet neighbor, the embodiment of their darkest nightmares, a wolf in sheep's clothing? Sleep became a luxury, a distant memory for the residents of Maplewood Drive. Fear, a relentless companion, kept them tethered to wakefulness, their senses on high alert. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside their windows sent jolts of adrenaline coursing through their veins. Neighborhood watch meetings, once sparsely attended gatherings marked by platitudes and coffee cake, transformed into tense strategy sessions fueled by suspicion and dread. Streetlights, once beacons of suburban tranquility, now cast long, eerie shadows, turning familiar landscapes into menacing obstacle courses. The night belonged to John Smith now. He moved like a phantom, his presence felt rather than seen. A flicker of movement behind a curtained window, the distant hum of an engine starting in the dead of night. These were the breadcrumbs he left in his wake, fueling their paranoia, tightening the knot of fear in their chests. They communicated in hushed whispers now, their voices barely audible above the pounding of their hearts. A nod of the head, a furtive glance in John Smith's direction, a shared look of understanding that spoke volumes in the absence of words. Every mundane detail took on a sinister significance. The way John Smith meticulously raked his leaves, his movements precise, almost robotic. The way he stood on his porch each morning, a cup of coffee in hand, his gaze sweeping across the street, seemingly taking inventory of his surroundings. They dissected his every move, searching for clues, for confirmation of their darkest suspicions. But John Smith, a master of disguise, revealed nothing. He remained an enigma, a blank slate upon which they projected their deepest fears. They felt his presence even when he wasn't there. A weight on their chests, a prickling sensation on the back of their necks, the unsettling feeling of being watched, scrutinized by unseen eyes. Their once peaceful neighborhood had become a pressure cooker of suspicion, the air thick with unspoken accusations and simmering paranoia. They imagined his eyes peering through the slats of their blinds, his ears pressed against their walls, his mind a labyrinth of dark thoughts and sinister intentions. They were trapped in a macabre game of cat and mouse, the roles constantly shifting, the line between hunter and prey blurring with each passing day. Every unexpected noise, every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside their windows sent their hearts racing, their minds conjuring up images of John Smith lurking in the shadows. A predator biding his time, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Whispers turned to rumors, spreading like wildfire through the community. Each retelling embellished the truth, adding layers of speculation and conjecture until the line between fact and fiction became hopelessly blurred. John Smith, the once unremarkable neighbor, was now the subject of whispered conversations in hushed tones. They spoke of strange smells emanating from his house, of muffled screams heard in the dead of night, of shadowy figures seen coming and going at odd hours. Each story, more outlandish than the last, served to solidify their belief that John Smith was not who he seemed. The lack of concrete evidence only served to fuel their suspicions. The police, their investigation stalled, seemed powerless to act. They were on their own, left to grapple with the growing certainty that a monster lived among them. The disappearance of Emily Carter, a single mother who lived 2 doors down from John Smith, shattered any remaining semblance of normalcy. Her car, abandoned at a nearby park, held no clues. Her 2 young children, found wandering the streets alone, could only offer fragments of a terrifying memory. A stranger at the door, their mother's screams, the overwhelming scent of bleach and fear. Panic gripped the community, the simmering fear boiling over into outright terror. The whispers turned to shouts, the rumors to accusations. John Smith, the quiet widower, the phantom neighbor, became their scapegoat, the embodiment of their darkest fears. They demanded justice, their fear morphing into a thirst for vengeance. But John Smith, the object of their rage, remained hidden behind his tightly shuttered windows, a silent, enigmatic presence at the heart of the storm. His silence, more deafening than any confession, fueled their suspicions, solidified their belief that they were living in the shadow of a monster. The disappearance of Emily Carter ripped through the heart of Maplewood Drive like a tornado, leaving the community in shock and disbelief, leaving behind a trail of devastation and despair. The once peaceful neighborhood was now a place of sorrow and uncertainty. No longer content with whispers and speculation, the residents, fueled by a potent cocktail of grief, rage, and fear, took matters into their own hands. They organized search parties and held meetings to strategize their efforts. Armed with flashlights and fueled by adrenaline, they combed through backyards, alleys, and wooded areas, their beams of light slicing through the darkness, hoping to find any clue that could lead them to Emily, searching for any sign of Emily or her alleged captor. The community was united in their determination, but the fear of what they might find loomed over them. The once familiar landscape, now imbued with an unsettling sense of menace, seemed to hold its breath, as if it too was waiting for answers. Seemed to hold its breath, its secrets hidden in the shadows, whispering of the unknown. Its secrets hidden in the shadows. Every corner, every shadow seemed to hide a piece of the puzzle. The police, their investigation hampered by a lack of concrete evidence and a community teetering on the brink of hysteria, struggled to maintain control. They worked tirelessly, but the pressure was immense. The air crackled with tension, the silence punctuated by the anguished cries of Emily's children and the frantic pleas of her neighbors. Days turned into nights, the silence punctuated by the anguished cries of Emily's children and the frantic pleas of her neighbors. Days turned into nights, each hour stretching into an eternity of agonizing uncertainty. Each hour stretching into an eternity of agonizing uncertainty. The community's hope, once a beacon of light, began to wane. Hope, a fragile flicker in the darkness, dwindled with each passing moment, replaced by a chilling certainty that the worst was yet to come. Dwindled with each passing moment, replaced by a chilling certainty that the worst was yet to come. The community braced itself for the inevitable, replaced by a chilling certainty that the worst was yet to come. The search for Emily Carter had become a race against time, with every second feeling like a lifetime. Section 2. Unearthing the Truth. The breakthrough, when it came, was a macabre gift from the heavens. A torrential downpour, the kind that unleashed the fury of the skies upon the earth, washed away the layers of normalcy, exposing the darkness that had festered beneath the surface of Maplewood Drive. A group of teenagers, seeking shelter from the storm, stumbled upon a scene of unimaginable horror in the woods behind John Smith's house. A freshly dug grave, its muddy mound shimmering under the relentless downpour, marked the spot where Emily Carter's lifeless body lay. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. a visceral confirmation of their darkest fears. John Smith, the quiet widower, the phantom neighbor, was no more. In his place stood a monster, unmasked, his true nature laid bare for all to see. Section 3. The Devil's Workshop. The interior of John Smith's house was a chilling testament to the depravity that had festered behind its neatly painted facade. What had once appeared unremarkable, almost sterile in its ordinariness, now screamed of secrets, of horrors, concealed behind a veil of normalcy. The basement, accessed through a hidden door cleverly disguised as a bookshelf, was a scene ripped straight from the depths of a nightmare. The walls, adorned with gruesome trophies, locks of hair, articles of clothing, photographs, bore witness to the unimaginable horrors that had unfolded within those concrete walls. A workbench, meticulously organized with an array of tools, knives, saws, pliers, each one meticulously cleaned and gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, sent shivers down the spines of even the most hardened investigators. The evidence, overwhelming in its depravity, painted a horrifying portrait of a predator who had honed his craft over years, his methods evolving, his victims united in their suffering. Section 4. A Glimmer of Hope. As the investigation into John Smith's crimes deepened, a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness. Emily Carter's 2 young children, their initial terror giving way to a quiet resilience, provided the key that unlocked the mystery of John Smith's final days. Their fragmented memories, pieced together through hours of careful questioning and the therapeutic power of play, revealed a chilling truth. John Smith had been planning to flee, to disappear, into the anonymity of the open road, taking Emily Carter and her children with him. Armed with this newfound information, the police launched a nationwide manhunt. Their search efforts focused on John Smith's known associates and the route he had meticulously planned for his escape. Section 5. The Reckoning. The final act of John Smith's reign of terror played out not in the shadows of Maplewood Drive, but under the unforgiving glare of the desert sun. It was a setting as harsh and unyielding as the man himself, a fitting stage for the climax of his dark saga. A tip from a vigilant gas station attendant, his suspicions aroused by a man and 2 small children who matched the descriptions plastered on a wanted poster, led the authorities to a desolate motel on the outskirts of Las Vegas. The attendant, a quiet hero in his own right, had noticed the fear in the children's eyes, a stark contrast to the man's cold demeanor. The ensuing standoff, a tense dance between desperation and justice, stretched into the long, hot hours of a desert afternoon. The air was thick with tension, the oppressive heat mirroring the intensity of the moment. Every second felt like an eternity, as negotiators tried to coax John Smith into surrendering. John Smith, his face a mask of rage and defeat, his options dwindling with each passing moment, knew the game was up. The weight of his actions bore down on him. The realization that his time was running out, etched into his features. In the end, it was the memory of Emily Carter, her face etched in his mind, her name a silent scream on the wind that tipped the scales. Her ghostly presence haunted him, a reminder of the innocence he had destroyed, the lives he had shattered. John Smith, his spirit broken, his will to fight extinguished, surrendered to the authorities, his reign of terror finally at an end. The desert, once a place of refuge, had become his prison, the final chapter in his story of violence and fear. The residents of Maplewood Drive, forever marked by the horrors that had unfolded in their midst, slowly began the long, arduous process of healing. Their community, once a symbol of safety and normalcy, had been irrevocably changed, but their spirit remained unbroken. The scars of John Smith's crimes ran deep, but so too did their resilience, their determination to reclaim their lives, their community, from the grip of fear. They came together, united by their shared trauma, and began to rebuild, brick by brick, heart by heart, determined to forge a future free from the shadows of the past. The wheels of justice, though often slow, grind inexorably towards their destination. John Smith, the unassuming neighbor who had harbored a monster within, faced a jury of his peers, their faces reflecting the collective grief and outrage of a community forever scarred by his crimes. The evidence, a damning tapestry woven from forensic science, eyewitness accounts, and the silent testimonies of those whose voices had been brutally silenced, left no room for doubt. John Smith, the Phantom of Maplewood Drive, was unmasked, his true nature laid bare for all to see. The jury's verdict, delivered after days of deliberation, was swift and unequivocal. Guilty on all counts. John Smith, the man who had moved among them like a ghost, a predator hiding in plain sight, was condemned to spend the rest of his days behind bars, his crimes forever etched in the annals of Maplewood Drive's history. The trial concluded, the verdict delivered, but the scars of John Smith's crimes ran deep, a constant reminder of the darkness that had invaded their once peaceful community. Maplewood Drive, once a symbol of suburban tranquility, now bore the weight of its tragic past, its name, forever, linked to the horrors that had unfolded within its borders. The laughter of children, once a constant melody echoing through the streets, was now a rare and precious commodity their playdates carefully supervised, their every move watched with a mix of love and lingering fear. Neighbors, once quick with a wave and a smile, now interacted with a cautious reserve, their conversations tinged with an unspoken understanding of the fragility of life, the ever-present potential for darkness to resurface. Maplewood Drive, a microcosm of suburban America, had learned a harsh lesson that evil can lurk in the most unexpected of places, that monsters often wear the masks of normalcy, their true nature concealed behind carefully constructed facades. The story of John Smith, the Phantom of Maplewood Drive, is a chilling reminder that monsters do not always lurk in the shadows, their presence heralded by thunder and lightning. More often than not, they walk among us, their true nature concealed behind a veneer of normalcy, their dark desires hidden from view. They are our neighbors, our co-workers, our acquaintances, the people we pass on the street without a second glance. Their lives intertwined with our own in a tapestry of casual encounters and fleeting moments of shared existence. We live in a world where appearances can be deceiving, where evil can lurk behind a charming smile or a friendly wave. The challenge, then, is to remain vigilant, to trust our instincts, to recognize the subtle signs that set our internal alarm bells ringing. For while it is impossible to know the heart of every stranger we encounter, it is within our power to be aware of our surroundings, to pay attention to the details that often betray a hidden darkness. In the aftermath of tragedy, it is only natural to question, to search for answers in the hope of preventing such horrors from recurring. We look for signs we might have missed, clues that could have warned us. But the truth is, there is no simple solution, no easy way to predict the unpredictable, no foolproof method for identifying a monster hiding in plain sight. They often blend seamlessly into the fabric of our daily lives. What we can do, however, is learn from the mistakes of the past, to trust our instincts, and to remain vigilant. To pay attention to the red flags that often wave, sometimes subtly, sometimes glaringly, unnoticed, in the face of reason and denial. If something feels wrong, if it gnaws at your conscience, if a person's behavior sets off alarm bells in your mind, do not dismiss it. Talk to someone, share your concerns, and seek advice. And above all, trust your gut. It is often our most reliable guide in uncertain times. It is often said that hindsight is 20/20, that we see things more clearly after the fact, but sometimes the most valuable lessons are learned through the painful process of confronting our fears and acknowledging our vulnerabilities, and acknowledging the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary individuals. It is a sobering realization. The story of John Smith, the Phantom of Maplewood Drive, is a cautionary tale, a reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected of places. It teaches us to be wary, to be cautious, a reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected of places. But it also shows us the importance of community. But it is also a testament to the power of community, the importance of vigilance, and the need for collective action, and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable darkness. Together, we can overcome even the most daunting challenges.